Hello, and welcome to another Cloud Podcast, a podcast designed to bring you stories from the smartest minds in IT, operations, and business, and learn how they're using cloud technology to improve business and the customer experience.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Cloud Podcast. Thanks again for joining and taking time out of your busy day. I'll be your host and moderator today. My name is Artie Costume. I am the founder and co-founder of Clarity Consulting, which is a contact center technology company. And with me today, we've got Brendan Strain, who is also a contact center guru, consultant. I don't even know how to describe you. You've been in the industry for such a long time. Brendan, welcome to the show.
I appreciate that.
And tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do in the day-to-day of your business, and then also where you came from. I see some Avaya switches back there, so I'm sure that will come up in this as well.
See. Yep, right there. So again, thanks for having me on. So Brendan Strain, I have worked in the telecom space for going on 20 years now. Without my beard, I look like I'm about 18. So people wonder how I've made it that long, if I started in diapers or whatnot. But, I got my start literally as a contact center agent. I was doing tier 2 network support for XO Communications back in the day. Contrary to popular belief, I loved my contact center job. I had a good time with it, and eventually sort of worked my way up through, circuit design, provisioning, transport design, fiber, all that kind of stuff. And then finally became a sales engineer. I was focused on voice products pretty heavily, but did, MPLS and, did the whole Cisco thing, my CCDA, my CCNA. And again, like I said, was just kind of the generalist SE. After XO, I actually moved on to Avaya, where I focused a lot on wireless, so Wi-Fi. Avaya had a great Wi-Fi product back in the day, Wi-Fi networking as well as contact center. So, kind of different ends, but coming from the provider space, it actually made, quite a bit of sense. So again, after Avaya, I moved on to Mastergy Communications, where I was basically heading up the voice practice for the entire West region. So anything contact center, SIP, UC, you name it. If I had voice, I was involved in it. So we were very successful working with the artist formerly known as Broadsoft, which Cisco acquired, and we worked with CC1, that was the artist formerly known as Transera back in the day, which Cisco renamed to the customer journey platform, and then now in its latest incarnation is WebEx Contact Center. And then during kind of the ramp down there, I made the jump to the dark side and kind of did the independent and working in the basically consulting and just overall third party, even normal, hey, we're just going to be the even review of every provider, and don't have to sell a specific product. And honestly, this is probably the best job, one of the best jobs that I've ever had, just because I can be truly honest about everybody, what I'm seeing from, whether it's Edify or Nice in Contact, or, it doesn't matter. I can be very honest about what I'm seeing, what my experiences have been working with them. So it's been a really great thing to do. My day-to-day really is I spend time with agents and telecom brokers, helping them understand the contact center market as they're talking to their own customers. And then the other half of my day is spent talking to customers, helping them understand what's out there in the market, what some of the trends are, who's the latest and greatest, and who was, sort of the established Gartner Magic Quadrant leader, type of provider. So, so a lot of working with customers, just helping them understand, what's out there, making sure that they make the best choice when it comes to looking at their contact center.
Oh man, such a wealth of knowledge. I have a similar path of being on the customer side and trying to do RFPs and selecting between 4 or 5 vendors, and then 3 years later doing the whole thing all over again.
Oh yeah.
6-month cycle. It's great to have people like you that can jump in, not only give recommendations, but you have the time to take a look at all the products. So all the suppliers and products, take their demos.
Absolutely.
So that the person buying doesn't have to take 17 different calls and all of them are demos, and then shuffle through 800 different contracts and figure out pricing and all that stuff. So let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll switch gears and talk a little bit about the future of where the technology is going for the contact center and the customer service world. But before we get too far, let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing today with the providers that have tools like AI or chatbots or self-service. Those are the hot topics. Those are what people are asking for consulting around today. Yep. But it's different. Sometimes it could be, a wolf in women's clothing, or it could be something without you knowing it. So talk to us a little bit about AI, chatbots, self-service, and your take on it.
Yeah. So everybody likes the new flashy, shiny thing. It's what keeps people interested. It's what keeps the industry moving forward. I think one of the biggest things that I have seen in the past, 2 years, and it's gaining even more steam this year, has been this conversation of AI, right? And what does AI actually even mean? And how is that different from RPA, remote process automation? How is that different than a bot? And how is that different than machine learning? And how is that different than just basic ass self-service, right? So all of these terms seem to get just mixed together, and people refer to all of them as the same thing, and then they refer to them as different things. So I think there's a lot of confusion out there with exactly what these are and what they do. So for example, I think you pretty much hear every major CCaaS or CX provider talk about their AI offering, and 98% of the time, I'll probably say their AI offering is a bot or a self-service application. And again, even to that point, often RPA, so just process automation, either automating something on the back end, automating AI, or automating IVR, tasks like that. So I think one of the big things with that is whenever a customer or anybody asks me, well, hey, who's doing the coolest thing with AI? My first response is, well, what are you actually looking for, and what are you actually looking to do? Because again, it means so many different things. Just like the term integration, this is one of my favorite things, is integration means something different to everybody. Sometimes it means click to call. Sometimes it means a screen pop. What does integration mean? And I think the same thing applies to AI. When you say AI and I want AI in my contact center, what does that actually mean? And what do you mean? So again, to that point, I think there are a couple of providers out there that do true AI. And how I normally differentiate the conversation of AI and machine learning, because those are both very closely related, not the same thing, but close. I think the biggest thing is machine learning is, gathering information, and it's figuring out how to present that information. Whereas AI is actually helping you make decisions and giving you decision criteria. And I think that's a huge distinction, just because there's very few companies that are truly giving the user suggestions and help in what does this data mean. So I think that's one of the kind of the next steps in contact center, and reporting is the big one with AI right now, that I think you're truly seeing some real help from machine learning and AI, is just, what do these reporting numbers mean? We're so used to KPIs, average handle time, average wait time, all these normal KPIs, but what do they actually mean to the company? So many companies, hey, we focus on these 5 KPIs because that's what we've always focused on. And I think this is a portion of the business where AI truly can make a difference and help people understand what does this information actually mean? What does my reporting really do and really mean for us? And are these even the right KPIs that we need to be looking at? So I think that's probably one of the most interesting and oft misunderstood topics, I think, in contact center right now. But yet, it's not going to stop, with the amount of money like NVIDIA and Intel and everybody is putting into, processing for AI and neural networks, things like that. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to drill into that a little bit more and talk a little bit about what your thoughts of the future are for these chatbots, self-service tools. I've heard them be called thinking machines or IVAs, intelligent virtual assistants.
Yep.
Where do you think, and before I ask this question, today there's so many chatbot providers. We're talking like north of 50, less than 100 that are actually viable. And then we've got these voice bot machines, which are similar to the chat bot, but over the voice channel. And you've got less, maybe like 10 in the marketplace and 3 or 4 are really good. You've got some social bots across social channels that have really emerged. Lots of SMS bots or digital bots that can do all of those all bundled together. You've got some that are more thinking machines and process oriented. So, send it to go do a task. It does, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then comes back for another part of the middle of the task and then goes back away. That, that could span over a couple seconds or it could span over 3 or 4 days or a week. And then you've got some other ones that are more proactive, like a Wizmo bot, where you initiate it, and then when the status of your order, so it changes from leaving warehouse to shipped or delivered to your front door, then it triggers some sort of outbound communication across whatever channel you want, phone, chat, email, or SMS. Do you think that in the future, there's going to be a consolidation or a convergence of a lot of these, or is it still going to be very fragmented, where some are great at phone, some are great at SMS, or is it all going to kind of converge and there's going to be, 5 good ones, or maybe even 2, the Coca-Cola or Pepsi of tools? What are your thoughts?
My thought is that for the near future, I think we're still going to see a lot of fragmentation, just because we're still in somewhat of a new technology phase. For a lot of these different things, even though the concept of multi-channel or omni-channel has been around for years now, right? There's nothing new in that respect. But when it comes to bots and augmenting your contact center and your just customer experience with bots, I think it's still so new, and there's so many different AI types of technologies and software companies out there today that you're going to still see a lot of fragmentation in the market. But like we've seen with contact center, there's actually been this huge resurgence of, they're branding themselves as CX, right? Customer experience companies. The acronym Cloud Contact Center or Contact Center as a Service seems to be going by the wayside, right? They're evolving. But we've seen a lot of consolidation there, where you have somebody that was really great in voice, you have somebody that was really great in UC, you have somebody that was great in digital channels, and they've through expansion bought all those up and created a single uniform offering. And I think that just like that will, few years out, we'll end up seeing a lot of consolidation into single CX offerings, just because that's another thing that we see very commonly with customers is they want to consolidate. I've got 10 different bills. I've got a UC provider. I've got a network provider. I've got a security as a service provider. They've got all these different providers, and the consolidation, making that easy and a seamless single user experience is huge. Agents like their interaction with software to be simple. They have to have it because their job is working with the customer, right? They need to help the customer with their issue. So the more streamlined you can make their experience, the better. So I think that will also drive consolidation. And we usually see a higher win rate with companies that do have really an all-in-one offering. Maybe they're not the best at everything, but they're really good at a lot of things. And, in many cases, unless the customer's got a very specialized, request or problem to solve, that typically ends up being the most popular option. Again, just because they know if they have one interface to add users, to remove users, to make changes, they're going to be much better off because they're not going to forget, oh, I've got to make that same change in 7 different places to make everything consistent or anything like that. So, that's kind of what I see is what is probably going to happen. More now. We'll continue to see more for a little bit, but then we'll start to see that consolidation and that collapsing of the market into, a handful of different, really good, providers that take care of multiple different things.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we started the conversation off with kind of a fringe tool, which is the AI chatbot self-service world. There's some other fringe tools that are very important. These fringe tools, these third-party tools, these add-ons, they're extremely valuable to the customer service or sales organization or whatever contact center organization you guys run. There's some other ones like speech analytics, gamification, QM, QA, WFM, all these acronyms. And I'll get to those in a second. But before that, let's talk a little bit about the platform, because you touched on this a little bit. Traditionally, it's called CCaaS, or Contact Center as a Service. But essentially, it's the tool that enables your agents or your team members to be able to communicate efficiently with the end user or the customer, whether it's in sales or support. So there's a lot of tools out there. There's ones that come up almost every year that are new, and they're much smaller. They don't have the full robust feature sets. There's the ones that we've all known forever that are in the Gartner Magic Quadrants and things like that. In your opinion, is there that much of a difference between one or the other, or are they all kind of, good enough? You just pick one and then work with what they've got, or is there really that much difference between, product A and product B? Just some honest opinion in case someone's going through that process and they're stuck.
That is an excellent segue into, a big part of what I'm seeing, and is just the ability to overanalyze and, kind of have this, analysis into paralysis, sort of mentality. Because to your point, there are so many of them. New ones pop up every day. People are starting to understand that CX, CX means customer experience, but that might mean a different type of customer experience. And, so we're seeing a lot of just that over ability to, come up with and have so many different providers out there. Now, that said, I think that to a large degree, you're going to be able to get with really any of the providers. And, if we talk about, some of the progenitors of the market, like InContact, who, NICE, the workforce optimization giant, ended up buying, which, you kind of think of it the other way normally, right? But, NICE purchased InContact. You have Genesis that bought Interactive Intelligence. Some of these big progenitors in the industry that really define cloud contact center as a service. I think that those are the providers that pretty much, regardless of who you get, you're going to be able to do what a contact center needs. So at some level, you're going to get the reporting that you need so that the customers can see their KPIs. You're going to be able to answer a voice call. You're going to be able to make an outbound call. You're going to be able to provide an IVR to your customers that has some sort of data dip capability to their CRM. So I think to a large degree, just about everybody will be able to do just about everything. Now, the caveat there is we're seeing some of these new little, somewhat niche providers that have a very specialized component of their contact center that is perfect built for an application. So, case in point, I'll bring up UJet. I think UJet, they're an up and comer, been around for only a couple of years. People often ask them, what's up with your name? Does it have anything to do with jets? Or, then, turns out it's somebody's name spelled backwards. But So UJet, their niche is customers that have an app, and that's their product, right? So if you are a bank and you've got a mobile banking app, and that is where, your customers live and breathe, they might actually be the absolute best fit because of their tight integration into mobile SDKs and that mobile infrastructure. And that's really where they help. Or, say you're Instagram and, you want to be able to have people hit support within the app and get connected to an agent. That's probably a great use case for them that not really everybody else can do. So generically, yeah, I absolutely think that everybody can pretty much handle the basics. But there are some special use cases out there that still, I think, will warrant some uniqueness in the market. And then to that point, we mentioned workforce optimization, workforce management, those QA. I think that we are seeing some advancement in the QA and some focus in the QA. Most of the time, QA is just a component of workforce optimization or workforce management packages. But, back to the AI as well, we're seeing Observe AI, who's really changing the game around QA and providing just useful information to supervisors on how do we actually deal with QA? What do these QA numbers mean? And just helping people along that way. So, to that point, I think there's still going to be some fringe out there on the edge that will continue to be very specific and focused on certain applications. But again, for the most part, regardless of who you choose, they're going to be able to get and handle those type of interactions, just the generic voice, email, SMS, social media to a degree, Twitter, Facebook things. Just about everybody is capable at some level of handling those on a decent level.
Totally agree. And I think you just saved all of our listeners probably about 6 months worth of RFP research, which is very helpful. I agree. There's so many features in some of these more established product sets that have been around for decades that they've almost have feature parity. And then it's now, what color do you want?
Totally.
Agents, what brand do you associate with, and what are the maybe I like to call it a sundae. Any of these technology stacks are like a sundae. It's like now we're nitpicking like the types of nuts on top of the
totally
sundae, hot fudge or caramel. We're not really talking about the ice cream anymore. So, but yeah, great example with with UJet. That is a great use case. There's a couple others out there that have redesigned their product set and feature set to be more specific to maybe benefiting the supervisors or benefiting the
absolutely
agent. So lots of really cool things out there.
And to that point, not to interrupt you, but the last thing I'll say on that is, typically what we used to see is people loved established players. They had to be on the Gartner Magic Quadrant. They had to be in the top right. Anybody else? Nope. If you're a big enterprise, you had to have that. And I've seen a lot more companies, a significant amount of ability and just want to look at companies that aren't even on the Magic Quadrant. Like, hey, they've been around for a year. Well, if they're doing something unique, let's look at them. And I've had a lot of, Fortune 1000 companies that I've talked to that are okay with that. Now, do they end up choosing some of those companies? Maybe not always, but they're more prone to look at it. And I think that's just due to our appification of our life. Just, you go on the Play Store, the Apple Store, and brand new app, you download it, you use it. Does it work? Great. Awesome. And, I think that's also a little bit of a paradigm shift than what people are traditionally used to seeing is you've got to be established. You've got to be around. Those are the only people. It's like the old adage, you'll never get fired for buying Cisco. That I think is somewhat in the contact center space and CX space kind of going away for that reason. So anyway, didn't mean to cut you off. Just wanted to mention.
It's perfect. I love that adage too. You'll never get fired for buying Cisco, but you will get promoted if you buy a cloud product instead.
Right.
It'll be cheaper and more effective. Although Cisco is working on their WebEx contact center, which is a cloud-based solution. So we'll see how that disrupts the market, and maybe that adage will come back.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some add-ons. So we talked about self-service, chatbots, thinking machines, kind of that world. You touched on Observe AI and maybe some automated QA pieces. So that's kind of the speech analytics realm for quality assurance. What about tools like gamification or tools that help with employee or customer engagement? Are those tools what's coming up next? I know there's some out there already, and there's some pretty amazing results and ROIs from them, but there's not a lot of players in that space and not a lot of people buying them today. It's too far. It's ahead of their mindset of what can I accomplish in the next year or 2 years. So what are your thoughts about gamification? Is it here to stay, or is it just going to be a hot topic for a little bit?
Oh, that's a good one. I think, and I love the idea of gamification. And I think as we've sort of, if we look at the millennial to, Gen Z migration, a lot of kids, and not only just kids, but now, young adults, they've grown up in a video game heavy, world. Maybe wasn't so much so, 20 years ago, but hey, now they're really used to that competitive nature of role-playing games, and I've got to level up. And I think for, certain types of businesses, gamification makes perfect sense. And I mean, I'm a competitive person. So yeah, if I can look up at the board and, show that I can, I've beat everybody else, then, hey, I'm proud of that. The one thing I think that is a few gamification services have done really well is tie it to reward services. A lot of the time you see, an internal employee reward system where, you get so many positive feedbacks or helps or thumbs up from other people. And, you can go get a $10 Starbucks gift certificate or a $20 Target gift certificate, or, something like that, an extra 30-minute break in a day. I think more gamification's more successful when they do pair in with those reward systems, because then it's not just I was on the board in that higher spot, but I got a reward for being, I got some sort of output and I'm getting something for it. I think those are the situations where I've seen the most positive impact with gamification. And the other thing, I think, you mentioned this, when we were talking a moment ago, but gamification, I think is definitely fringe, and I think it's cool. It's something that everybody thinks is cool, but at the end of the day, to your point, they aren't buying it. And so I think that was something that I delved into a little bit and continue to, is every customer that you talk to about it, everybody always says, oh yeah, definitely cool. The gamification services, they all say guaranteed ROI, but seldom do people move forward with a full-blown gamification, put it out there, make everybody a part of it. And I think that's a couple reasons. There's a couple reasons for that. The big one is people can't imagine and they don't see how it's taking care of the basics. And especially even, the past couple of years, I think COVID and the whole work from home thing sort of proved what people like you and I have been saying for years, is that the cloud works and the cloud will keep you alive in situations where everything is gone. And those are the businesses that I saw still continue to be successful through, 2020. Anybody that used the cloud service, they were up and running. They were great because all they did is go home, or they just stayed at home where they've already been working. But much like a contact center piece of software and answering the phone and having something that does something somewhat tangible, I think people don't see as much of value and output of gamification as being put on top. I think mature contact centers that know what they're doing, that have experience management, I think they see the joy and the benefit of gamification. I think they're the best targets for gamification software. But I think for the contact centers that they're trying to figure it out, that they don't know where and who and what the software they like the best, and are still somewhat, I'll say, young in terms of their management and leadership. I think while again they think it's cool, CFO is not going to sign off on it because it's not mandatory, right? They don't have to have it. So that's where I think that the products that do pair in with employee reward programs, I think they have a leg up just because it's an extension to that. And then you can kind of push that through the rest of the business, right? And you can make it so that there's a better, more clear ROI attached to the reward mechanism. But I also see that the big players are also putting gamification functionality within the contact center. So not to rewind all the way to the beginning, but I think we'll see some consolidation there, and the bigger providers buying up some of the independent gamification services and making them part of their workforce optimization, workforce management, QA packages.
Well, Brendan, you're definitely a wealth of knowledge in the contact center space, customer service space. We're out of time. I could probably talk about this topic for another 2 or 3 hours. But
I was going to say that was the quickest hour I think I've ever gone through.
But it's absolute pleasure having you on the show. If anyone wants to reach out to him, we'll put his link to LinkedIn down below. You could reach out to myself or to him directly. Brendan, thank you so much for being on the show and on the podcast. And thank you all for watching.
Artie, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Well, that wraps up the show for today. Thanks for joining. And don't forget to join us next week as we bring another guest in to talk about the trends around cloud contact center and customer experience. Also, you can find us at adleradvisors.com, LinkedIn, or your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next week on another Cloud Podcast.